I got a call from Stuart at the beginning of December, and he said, are you aware of these FinCEN changes with the sale of property through LLCs? And I said, I have no clue what you're talking about. That is exactly the kind of thing we need to be talking about at our meeting. So everybody, let's welcome our friends Stuart and Alida from Oak Title.
Alida and Stuart, yeah.
What's the difference between Stuart and Alida and Stuart?
Well, we want to put Alida first. Yeah.
You know, whatever comes to my mouth first is what usually gets said. Ask Lauren.
I don't know if this is on. I think I'm muted.
If it's green, you're good.
Okay.
Come on up.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Everyone.
You've been here before.
I have been here before.
She's so nervous, too.
I'm one of the attorneys with Oak Title. This is the first time I've ever taught FinCEN to anyone other than Stuart and Lindsay. So you get to be the guinea pigs. Everyone should grab one of these flyers. They should be on that back table. This is going to kind of outline everything that we talk about today. I'm going to kind of run through the FinCEN rule, and then Stuart's going to offer some insight into a great workaround, and then we can open up for questions. I'm going to take a seat.
Alida, what is FinCEN?
Okay. So FinCEN is established by the U.S. Treasury Department, and it's their financial crimes enforcement network. So FinCEN is all about taking care of fraud as we see it.
But FinCEN is also behind, like, Know Your Customer, KYC.
Yes.
Which, if you're a business and you go open a bank account today, we've opened an additional bank account, and we have a lot of accounts with JPMorgan Chase, and they put us through the ringer. Like, if it's been too many years, they have to, like, go reevaluate and make sure, you know, like, I'm not a...
You see that now with other big companies, too, not just banking.
Right. We're seeing it for credit card collections.
Airbnb
if we were to
does
do...
it, Booking.com
right.
does it.
If we were to do bidirectional payments with you, we would have to do KYCs with you all if we use Stripe and other third-party networks. So it doesn't mean that there's criminal action here. It just, these are the people that get oversight of it.
Absolutely. And so this Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has come out with a new rule. So it's a new law that's being put into place called the Anti-Money Laundering Rule. And what this is trying to do is combat money laundering in real estate in the United States. So this little sheet kind of outlines what we're going to talk about. This rule is going into effect on March 1st. So anything that is closing March 1st or later, this is going to apply to. Now, I will say, as of 7 p.m. last night, the real estate report has not been issued by FinCEN. They have not put out the official form that needs to be filled out. So this March 1st deadline, as we get closer, I'm worried they might push it back just because they don't have the paperwork out yet. And then therefore, all of the software and all of the companies that are working on systems to collect this information, how we relay it to the federal government, those mechanisms haven't been able to be put in place because we don't have that form yet. So we might see a further delay, but it's still super important for you all to become well-versed in this because it is going to happen, whether it's on March 1st or a little later.
But it's only going to affect certain transactions, right?
It is going to only affect certain transactions. This is going to be a nationwide reporting requirement, and it's going to be for cash-only transactions where an entity is purchasing a residential property. So your entities are listed on here. They're going to be corporations, partnerships, estates, associations, LLCs, and trusts. There are some exemptions, what we'll get to, and we'll kind of run through the different definitions that we're seeing in this. The purpose of FinCEN's anti-money laundering rule is that we do not want foreign illicit actors, is the word that they use, to be able to launder and wash their money through residential property transactions, where they purchase a property through all cash with dirty money, and then when they turn around and that money goes to the title company, and now the title company has dispersed it, it's been laundered, it's clean money. So their hope is that by collecting all of this information, they'll be able to stop some of these transfers to these entities that are in some level untraceable. So these illicit actors are going to be money launderers seeking to conceal criminal proceeds, organized crime networks and drug traffickers, and corrupt foreign officials and oligarchs that are attempting to hide assets in the U.S. real estate market.
So we're asking criminals to be truthful?
Yes, we sure are. And there's going to be a lot of resounding implications to this, many of which, of course, have yet to be seen. And we'll see how effective this is and how that causes the rule to evolve over time to kind of be able to be comprehensive, but also not be completely relying on criminals, to be honest.
All right, Alida, to respect all the things you have and want to get through, but also to keep this going.
Yes.
So it's LLCs, trusts. What about successions?
So successions are going to be a separate exemption that would not be subject to this. So death is going to be classified as one of our exemptions. So whether you have a will, a testamentary trust, or by operation of law, the property is devolving down to heirs, FinCEN will not apply.
Okay. So really, if we start knocking all that out, what percentage of transactions do you all think this is even going to apply to? 10%, maybe?
It's going to be a pretty small amount.
So this is also for the I call them the cutesy clients that do things like record the sale for $100 and oh no, I was told on an Instagram post I should open an LLC in Montana and buy my house that way. Idiots. This applies to them, and this is another way we can counsel them into being look, there's new requirements. I know just enough to tell you it's going to be a pain in the neck.
Oh, yes. And
just
it's going to be
buy
costly.
it in your name like a normal person, and I promise you there's better tax benefits buying a primary residence as an individual than there is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So residential property, this is only going to apply when it's a residential property, but this is a really big sticking point because they define residential property, of course, as a real property with a structure for 1 to 4 families, land with the intent to put a residence on it, condos, mixed-use properties, and shares in a co-op. So mixed use, even if it's commercial downstairs and residential upstairs, they are still going to classify that as a residential property that is going to be subject to FinCEN. There was a lot of comments when the law was first proposed. They had legal scholars and academics come in and kind of offer feedback, and that was something they were very concerned about, that mixed use can get kind of sticky for the purposes of this, but they insisted that that was going to be part of the residential property definition. And then when it comes to lots, something we all brought up in a CE that I attended about this, what about the purchaser's intent? How can we reasonably rely on that? So the purchaser is going to have to certify in writing what they want to use the property for. So they're not going to be able to say, I'm purchasing this lot, it's zoned, it can be residential or commercial, I'm going to use it as commercial, and then 3 months later they start building a residence on it. They are going to be certifying to the federal government in writing of their intent. And we are allowed as the reporters, because in Louisiana it's primarily going to be your title and escrow company that is doing this reporting for you all. It is going to be we're going to be able to reasonably rely on that intent that they provide.
So just to be clear, I really only need to know as a realtor, if you're buying something anywhere borderline residential with an LLC or other entity that's not a succession or in your individual name, this is going to be a more complex closing.
Yes.
From a reporting standpoint. And basically, I just need to make sure that the title company's got it handled and my obligations are relieved?
Yes. So the reporting, it's a reporting cascade, so there's no way to get around this. You cannot say, I don't want to provide that information. The title attorney is the one that is going to be required to report it, and if they don't, there is a cascade of different persons that are responsible for reporting this information.
Does it fall down to us ever?
It does not. It's typically going to be the entity that
This is beautiful.
Providing the escrow transfers, that is recording the documents, notarizing the documents, but it is something that you could possibly be pulled into if there is deemed to be malicious intent or concealing of the true intent of the purchase of the property. Zoning is going to come into play a lot. So we, as title attorneys, are going to have to rely on you all as agents to provide accurate zoning information.
Don't do that. Just go to the website.
So, of course, if it is zoned as just
I'm not saying for the people in
commercial,
here. I'm saying for the rest of this
Yes.
our community, it'd be much smarter for you all to just go to NOLA Property View or the Jefferson Parish Assessor's Office.
Yes.
Jefferson Parish Property View.
So all of that's going to be taken into account as we go through this reporting list. So how far are we going to have to go to verify this information? If someone's going to provide an address to us, we don't need to pull up their driver's license and make sure that the address matches. We can reasonably rely on what they're providing because, like I said, they are signing and certifying to the federal government that it is valid information. So we don't have to dig too deep, but we do have to collect all of the information. There is no ability to waive any of the requirements just because your client might not want to provide it. So this real estate report that we record with the federal government is going to list out the human being that is filling out the form. So that is going to be the buyer that is the head honcho at that entity. They are going to be physically filling out their information as well as the business or the trust's information. They're going to have to provide a legal mailing address that is a physical address. I know that's going to be a sticking point for some people because a lot of businesses use P.O. boxes. That is just not going to be sufficient.
What about rural?
I'm sorry?
What about rural areas that may just be P.O. boxes?
It's unclear.
So the advice there is because, again, this is entity. So LLC is probably the one where it comes up the most. Wherever your designated agent of services has to have a physical mailing address in the state of Louisiana, that's probably going to be your best.
Subnexus.
Yeah, bet there.
And that'll be how they first go after him. So, okay, to put a bow on this, I mean, this sounds like it's really going after people laundering money in the New York condo market, Miami condo market.
Yes. It started out in more specific markets such as Miami, I think Boston, Baltimore. There were a few areas where they were noting these kind of transactions were occurring more frequently. And they kind of started out this process there and then realized that it was happening at a much larger scale across the country. And so now the rule is applied to the entire geographic United States regardless of price point. At one point, the rule did only have a certain, if it was over a certain amount in those locations, that's when it applied. But this rule is applying to all properties in the U.S., no matter the price point.
Got it.
Yeah, but when you think about like real implications of this, like we have a lot more cash purchase properties in the rest of the country, over 50%, like 53% in New Orleans. And so a lot of people are buying cash, and then what percentage of those buy personally versus LLC? And so I don't know what that number is, but there's still a decent amount that are going to have to go through these hoops. And so like setting the expectation that this is coming, because it's invasive and really what I would consider normal privacy. Like I shouldn't have to tell you the intent of what I'm going to do with this lot, right?
Yeah,
like
this is America.
I feel like I should be able to take that to the Supreme Court, right? Ability to own property. Yeah. And so
Well, that's why the Chinese are amassing property around military bases in this country, because we haven't figured out a legal method of stopping them.
But this would be like a Brown's Dairy situation, is like what goes in my mind quickly of we're buying this property, and no doubt in discovery you would find out they absolutely had intent to turn this into like a short-term rental complex versus affordable housing.
Well, you wouldn't on that one, but okay.
Yeah.
So my question is,
Yeah.
the conversation for us is going to be truly for our investors, because we do work with a lot of investors.
Well, it's investors, it's high net worth individuals that use
LLCs.
family trusts and things like that to buy. Now, as long as there's a loan, as long as there's a lien from a real
It
company,
has to be from a financial institution that is already doing these kind of
the FinCEN rules.
investigative.
So
yes.
if the family trust is buying the house for the child or adult child, and there's a loan coming from Chase Mortgage or Quicken or something like that, no need. You don't worry about this.
It's only when it's cash.
It's only when it's cash, and I think that's a big difference too.
And Jeffrey?
Putting cash on the we all know that putting cash on the purchase agreement does not mean they're paying with cash. What percentage of the time is it cash versus not contingent on financing?
We don't see it too terribly often.
Really?
But one of the interesting requirements with this is they are going to have to show the information for the financial institution where the funds came from. So showing up with physical cash it's unclear how we're going to proceed with that or be able to. Not that we have a money counter in the back room at Oak Title. We require they show up with a cashier's check or they wire those funds, but we are going to have to collect the information about where those funds are coming from.
So Jeffrey, you were so close to figuring out probably the easiest, our crackpot solution is I have an LLC, let's call it Pirri Properties, and I buy residential rentals and I like to pay cash. Well, I'm just going to go to a financial institution and just say, I want a multiple indebtedness or a line of credit mortgage. So I don't have to draw anything. I still have to do this one time. And then when I go to buy my second property, again, all cash, I'm just going to go back to that bank and say, I want to add this property to that existing mortgage. And instead of doing it all over again, we've already done it once, I can then proceed to buy it. The bank gets with the title company, hey, you know, file this act of deposit to add this property to the existing mortgage. And that way, I still have to go through all this requirements, but only have to do it one time, and it's with the bank. I don't have to do it with the title company. I don't have to, and you'll see on your sheet that we require stuff from the sellers as well, and this avoids that big headache. And now we don't have to call sellers and say, hey, give us your financial stuff, give us your personal information.
Because that's the biggest pushback we're
why
anticipating.
does the seller need to provide anything?
Exactly. So the seller does have to provide a good deal of information, and that, I think, is where we're going to see the biggest pushback. Because a lot of this stuff, if you have a trust or an LLC, most of the information they're asking, these people have that information available. It's in their articles of organization or in the trust document itself. But the sellers are going to be the ones that are like, it's the buyer that the feds are concerned about. Why do I have to report this? So it might actually make those cash offers less desirable because the seller might not want to be subject to this reporting.
So they're trying to figure out if it's a straw sale, basically, right? If they're asking the seller's information, they're trying to prove. All right, with 2 minutes left here on this topic, what else? What do we have to know?
I had a question about 1031 exchanges. With that,
Can we come back to? Can we?
I was actually going to just touch on
Yeah,
that.
hold.
Exemptions. 1031 exchanges are exempt. Easements, death, as we talked about, by will or by operation of law, bankruptcy, court supervised transfers, and this one is very important. Trusts where you are the settlor or grantor of the trust and you are putting property into the name of the trust and you currently own it, that will be exempt. Because they know that people have a trust that holds their property, but they need to refinance it, so they take it out of the trust, they put it in their name, they refinance it, then they put it back in the trust. None of those transactions are going to have to be reported. Because they understand that it is there's really no money changing hands, it's just the person putting it in their own trust,
It's
taking
tax.
it out.
It's
So
tax
that's
money.
going to be an exemption as well as that 1031 exchange.
Cool. All right. We're open to questions, or do you
Yeah,
have anything you want to
questions.
finish on? All right, go to Philip first.
That was 1031.
Okay, perfect.
When does the process start with y'all starting to do the background? Because I'm understanding you're dealing with the federal government. And how much time is it going to add to a cash sale if we were used to before just making this process fairly simple?
So the way that our underwriters have framed it, we absolutely cannot close without all of this information. So it will be a condition of closing that will delay the closing until we have every single piece of information. The form cannot be submitted in part. So we will have to fill it out, and we don't have to submit it until 30 days after closing, but we cannot proceed with closing without having all of that information. So the delay would just be based on how quickly those parties will get all of the information, which, as you know, is going to be like pulling teeth.
But the good news is it sounds like the government doesn't have to verify or accept or anything, right? Yeah, we're not
Correct,
waiting.
correct. We're not waiting on them to process that form in order to be able to close.
Yeah.
We just have to possess the information to put on the form to be able to submit it after closing. Yes.
Okay.
You might have said this already. Why does the seller have to provide the information?
Because they're trying to make sure it's not a straw sale, meaning a BS transaction.
It's just part of the...
Right, like
They're not watching
two
the
arm's
money
length
either.
parties that are working together.
And then the seller has to claim that. Not $100. Right.
So we're expecting a lot of pushback. They're anticipating that filing the report is going to cost $250. So that doesn't even include the overhead from the title companies, the overhead for the systems that are being utilized to get the software, to collect the information, the time. So this is going to make things a little pricier.
So just so I understand, if I'm working with a buyer and they purchase owned by an LLC, this could potentially come into play?
No, it's when they're purchasing in the name of the LLC.
So if I have a seller
With
then-
cash.
With cash. So if I have a seller and we receive a cash offer and the buyer, they're going to have it, I guess in the purchase agreement, an LLC, that is when I'm going to need to advise my client on this.
So that's another thing, is you want to make sure that buyer, are they buying in an LLC? Because we get purchase agreements all the time signed just by an individual name.
Right.
And that person then tells us, oh, I'm actually putting it in my LLC.
What you're legally allowed to do in the state of Louisiana, you can
assign it.
assign back or forth to either. So I don't know if it's
But it's no
unethical.
longer going to be able to, the day before closing, they're like, oh, by the way, I
Yeah.
decided I'm going to put it in my LLC.
Go
It is
change
going
the
to-
documents. I forgot to tell you.
Correct, because
maybe-
that's going to just start this whole snowball effect of where we have to collect all
That's
this.
so important for us to know, to advise.
I think I think that's a great key takeaway. See why we
Yes.
invited them here to talk about this.
But then that transfer from themselves into their LLC would have to be reported.
Who's the enforcement entity or agency? Like, how's the enforcement
It's
work?
going to be the U.S. Treasury, and if we do not comply with it as the reporting person at the top of that list of people, we could face gigantic fines or jail time. So I love I love y'all, but not enough to go to jail for your clients.
Hold up. Go ahead.
I'm sure this has never happened at Oak Title, but have you heard in the title business around in our market that you think this is going to stop some transactions, or there's things that you've seen, or is this just extra work for you that you feel like is unnecessary? I mean,
It's just extra work.
yeah.
You
You
know,
don't see a lot of this happening.
Our software,
here.
our closing software company today launched what their reporting will be, and we can send you guys the template of what it looks like, and you can kind of go through and see what it is. But as Alida mentioned, that we're just guessing because there hasn't been a finalized reporting form from the federal government yet. But yeah, it's just my advice is, if you have a client who's looking at buying cash in an LLC, trust, what have you, is do it before March 1st. But
I'm doing one tomorrow.
Familiarize
Actually,
yourself with what is going to be required, and just say, okay, like before we start submitting offers, this is what we're going to need, and that way, when the title company reaches, we all have it ready to go.
I guess my question was more like, do you think that there's actually more laundering happening in our market, that you think this is going to actually?
Maybe for the title companies that are collecting physical cash with like money counters in the back, that may be the type of, it happens. That may be the type of situation because that cash is not sourced.
We have a gentleman who likes to go to the bank with a duffel bag and then.
But he always purchases in his individual name, so that would not be a reportable transaction because he is purchasing it in his own name.
I think it definitely does happen. There was someone that I was telling Alida the other day, it was a $3 million sale, and we had to say, no, we're going to pass on this. This is clearly either money laundering or fraud situation going on. And we actually did a background check on the guy, and he's, shocker, has been arrested for fraud twice before.
What was your red flag in that?
He gave me two different names, and then he kept going
Strong.
back and forth. Yeah, kept going back and forth with the LLC name. I don't have a tax ID number for my LLC. A lot of things that were just like, this isn't adding up. But the two different names was the biggest one.
And his agent had only spoken to him via email.
That's cool.
I do that all the time.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
That's even better. Okay. All right. Any final questions?
And of course, you're going to have more questions as time comes on. We're always available to answer anything. It's going to be a learning curve where we're all kind of going through it together. Hopefully that form comes out sooner rather than later. If not, this may get bumped back, but we're going to be here to help.
One thing real quick. Remember, how the news articles come out right at the first of the year of all the laws that changed? There's a law that changed around buying property that is people have not been paying their state property taxes on. People used to be able to just go buy those. You'd find a property that was behind a few years behind on their taxes, and then suddenly you'd end up owning it, right?
My grandfather used to do it all the time.
You go to tax sale, you pay the taxes.
And the penalties.
And the penalties. Then the buyer or the original owner would have up to 3 years, 18 months if it's a blighted property, but 3 years to redeem that property. They would pay the penalties, the interest, whatever, back to the person who purchased it at tax sale. After 3 years, if it wasn't redeemed, you'd have to go to court. You get what's called quiet title. But it became a very sticky gray area for title companies because we require what's called Mennonite notice, which is actual notice to anyone that has a claim to that property. That claim could be a lien. It could be, oh, the property was at my grandparents' name. They just never opened up a succession. My parents are dead. They never opened up a succession. You have to find all 18 heirs and physically give them notice. It's not just notice of put it in the newspaper. It has to be actual notice, is what the Supreme Court called it. So what Louisiana has done is to kind of clean this all up is instead of a tax sale, we're now calling them tax liens. The rules are still pretty much the same. You have 18 months for blighted properties, 3 years for normal property to redeem. The interest stays the same. The penalties stay the same. The only difference is after that redemption period's up, instead of going to court to try to get quiet title and find an underwriter that would issue, merchantable title to this property, you instead foreclose on the property because you've become a lien holder. So the sheriff's sale comes, forecloses, the sale goes to the sheriff's sale. The initial investor gets their investment plus the penalties plus whatever costs associated with the sheriff's sale back. And then the property goes, then the next person in line in the chain of line gets the next, and then property goes to whoever bought it at sheriff's sale, and then the additional proceeds, if there are any, go to the original owner or held somewhere for the original owner. So what I like to tell people, it's become more of an interest play, not a property play.
Yeah,
so,
you don't get to steal the property away anymore, but you do get 30-some% interest.
Yeah. So you can get up to 40% interest on your initial investment. So if you have $5,000 laying around, you're like, what can I do? I could put it in a CD and make 3%, or let me just go to this tax sale and
maybe I missed. Why can't you end up with the property?
You could still bid on it at the sheriff's sale. So you could still bid on it, but
you could still.
They're not letting you end up owning $1 million building anymore for just the property taxes alone.
Correct.
And let's remind people how expensive sheriff's sales are. Like everyone thinks oh, you just show up on the courthouse steps and they're going to auction this off and it's so fun and everybody's happy. You know what they do? They charge 3%. The sheriff's office makes their money by charging 3%. Funny number, huh? to whoever wins that.
I actually like this change to the rule because for us as title attorneys, we're not going to have to deal with the instance where we get an abstract in and we say we can't close this property because of this tax sale because according to our underwriters, that's not valid title. This mechanism is going to make it so that title that is transferred through the sheriff's sale is valid title that is insurable across the board. So it's going to alleviate some of those issues to where we don't have those tax sales that can only be closed by a handful of companies.
Yeah. So 2 takeaways. If you're buying an LLC with no mortgage, it's going to be more complicated. Or if you're in a transaction where that happens, it's going to be more complicated. And 2, if your client's talking about a tax sale and stealing a property away from somebody, it's not as juicy as it used to be. Right?
Correct.
All right. Thank you all both for being here.
My takeaway is it's complicated and just go talk to a great title company.
Michelle. Oh, great takeaway. Michelle, go ahead.
Question. So is this only applying to people who are using real estate agents? Or is
No.
For FinCEN? No, it's for everyone. So here's another thing that was brought up was, well, what if I just buy it in my personal name and then I just write a quitclaim deed, go to a local notary, have them stamp it, and I record it. That notary, and whoever records it, still has to apply to FinCEN. They still have to do the requirements after the fact. Ooh. So the workaround of, I'll just have my cousin who's a notary do a quitclaim for me, they still have to record it. If the federal government picks it up, then you just got your cousin who's a local notary in trouble because you didn't tell him, he wasn't aware.
So you think the notary at Lakeside Mall that's there that sells the wrapping paper jobs, they also are going to know this?
They're going to know because it's
the mobile.
Because they'll lose their yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Is the report recorded with the sale?
It's not recorded in land records. It's just recorded with the federal government through a secure system that has yet to be created.
So if you you buy something and then you sell it, can you access that report, sort of like a title search, and to make sure everything before was clean?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't think that that's going to be available just for privacy reasons.
Federal government make
Ashley-
it easy on you?
Ashley, let's wrap. You get to be the last question for Stuart and Alida.
Is this just the continental U.S. or does this include Puerto Rico?
Good question.
That is a good question. I am not sure if it includes Puerto Rico, but I will do some research and find out.
The reason I'm asking is because most of the property down there is bought in an LLC because of the taxes. When you go to sell it, there's no cap gains tax if you're doing the Act 60. So if it's in an LLC, then you don't have to. There's no cap gains.
To reinflate the Puerto Rican economy, we made some very tax-friendly laws there. All right. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.